but with Donald Trump, there's always a catch. The difference between my bill, the TIPS Act, and the Trump concept of a bill is that my bill actually protects workers. Trump's concept would solidify a loophole, allowing the rich to gift their fortune to their kids and call that inheritance a tip. That's a ripoff. And it gets worse. His concept would have actual tip workers withholding contributions from their Social Security retirement. So while he's helping the rich, he's literally harming the working poor. That's a ripoff too. My bill defines what a tipped worker is. It's the people around this table. It's the people in this room. It's the people who staff our hotels and our casinos, and it's the hardworking restaurant and hospitality workers throughout this city and throughout this country. Trump's policy helps hedge fund managers. Say it with me, it's a ripoff. It's a ripoff. My bill also provides an income cap to prevent the tax loophole for the ultra-rich. Trump's plan creates a loophole large enough to drive an 18-wheeler through it. So the choice is clear. Support my bill that raises the wages for tip workers across the country. It ensures the rich pay their share, and it helps hardworking tip workers keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets. Or Trump's version, which is nothing more than a ripoff. So today, I'm proud and I'm calling on every Republican and Democrat who is serious about lowering taxes to sign on to the TIPS Act. Sign on to the TIPS Act. Reject the Trump Republican ripoff and support the working people that are with me today. Give tip workers a well-deserved raise and let people keep more of their hard-earned money. That's what my bill does, and it's the only bill that does that. I'm incredibly proud to be with all of you, to have this conversation, to hear directly about why this legislation is important. And when I return to Congress next week, as a member of the Ways and Means Committee that will be writing this legislation and voting on it, I'm going to take your voices, your concerns, your questions back with me. So thank you very much for taking the time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend. He is someone that I've been on the picket lines with, made sure that we hold companies accountable. He has fought to improve the wages, to improve the benefits, to secure retirement, to create the housing fund, to provide down payment assistance. It's the leadership of the Culinary Workers Union and my friend Ted Papageorge who's made those wins possible, and I'm really proud to be here with you today.
Thank you, Congressman Horsford. I have some comments, but I'm going to then turn it back over to you, and because I think we've got a bit of a program and there may be plenty of questions. Look, the Culinary Union applauds Congressman Stephen Horsford for his leadership in reintroducing the TIPS Act, and we urge swift passage in Congress, eliminating taxes on tips, but ending this $2.13 an hour sub-minimum wage. Look, along with going after big corporations price gouging on food, gas, and housing, it's got to be part of an overall program to tackle the high cost of living for working families. And look, let's be honest here. Unfortunately, the Republicans laid a giant goose egg on cost of living so far. They're doing nothing for the cost of housing or rent. Homeowners insurance has doubled. Car insurance has tripled. Groceries are still going up. Gas is going up. And it looks like there's no interest in going after this massive price gouging and collusion that really exists right now in the corporate world. And the reality is nobody voted for this chaos that is dangerously rattling our economy And we've got to protect this economy. That's our job, is to protect our growth and protect this recovery we're in the middle of and protect this economy. And it's outrageous that many companies across the country still pay tipped workers as little as $2.13 an hour. And as long as that's out there, that's going to be a danger everywhere. The legislation that Congressman Horsford is championing will uplift millions of workers, including many in Nevada, by eliminating federal income taxes on tips and ending the sub-minimum wage. Congressman Horsford understands the unique struggles and challenges that hospitality workers face daily. His firsthand experience, working alongside these workers for a decade at the Culinary Academy of Las Vegas, uniquely positions him to champion this vital legislation, which will benefit nearly 6 million workers nationwide, particularly those making less than $37,000 a year. Culinary Union urges all elected officials in Nevada and across the country to join Congressman Horsford and the Culinary Workers Union and tipped workers all across this country to support this crucial Pro-Worker Tips Act legislation. Again, I want to say to Congressman Horsford and the entire Nevada delegation, thank you so much for your tireless work and fight on issues that affect workers of Nevada and workers all across this country. Thank you again so much, and I'm going to hand it back over to you, Congressman. Thank you.
So look, I really want to hear from the people around this table. I want to maybe give an opportunity for each of you just to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what property you're with, and I know we want to hear specifically from Eileen and Yolanda, and then I want to answer your questions about this legislation, where we are, what it's going to take to get across the finish line, and then go from there. So why don't we start with Jason, and we'll go around the table and then come back to Eileen and Yolanda. Yeah, you're good.
Hi there, my name is Jason. I'm a bartender at the Luxor.
Use the mic.
Here, let me hand it.
I was really hoping I wouldn't be first.
That's okay, brother. You're amongst friends.
That's right.
Family. So my name is Jason. I'm a bartender at the Luxor. And just to start off, this union has changed my entire life. My entire projection, my political views, pretty much has changed the landscape of my life, and I would do anything for this family that I've built here. I do have a lot of concerns. I hear taxes, tips every single day on the internet, patrons, other bartenders. I didn't know that we were coming up with some kind of legislation for ourselves. As far as concerns go, one of my bigger concerns would be, like you were saying, loopholes, language that they could write in there to pay, us less. I know we're in a union. As long as we have the right to unionize, we're protected, but for every other, tip worker in this state, for the whole country. And then another concern I had would be, say we were trying to buy a new house, and now let's take 30 grand off of our official income. So how would we be able to prove would we still have to claim our money? I don't know if I know how to express myself very well there, but I'm sure you get the gist. I'm happy to be here, and I apologize if I kind of rambled.
Not at all. Perfect.
Next,
Thank you.
please.
Hi, my name's Joseph Warren, a bartender at MGM. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name's Joseph Warren, bartender at MGM. I've been there about 20 years now. Jason touched on a couple of my concerns as far as proof of income. Another bigger and far-reaching concern of mine, or long-term, is what's going to happen to the funding of Social Security if you have millions of workers suddenly not paying taxes on tips? And correct me if I'm wrong, in the next 10 years, if Social Security is not shored up, the benefits are going to start being cut. Am I correct on that, right? And so in the next 10 years, I'm telling on myself here, I'm looking at retiring. So that is a big concern to me right there. What is going to happen to Social Security if suddenly all this income for Social Security and funding of it is lost?
Thank you. Thanks, Joseph. I'm going to hear all your questions, and then I'll come back around.
Hi, my name is Josefina Hurtado. I am a food server at the Westgate. I've been a union member since I was 16, so about 20 plus years. I actually do support the no tax on tips because I'm a single mom, and I've worked for the $1.19 an hour when I relocated to North Carolina. My spouse at the time was military. To make ends meet, I'm making $1.19, and the tips weren't all that great. So I think raising minimum wage is like a plus, along with no tax on tips, because it is a gift. So I 100% support it, and I will be there to fight along your side to get that passed, because I think it's going to benefit everybody in the long run.
Hi, my name is Morame Moses. I'm a food server at the Bellagio. I've been there since we opened almost 7 years ago. And, the union has been fantastic with so many things. And I have a couple concerns. First of all, how do we show proof of our income? I think that's a huge one. The other thing is, I guess I'm just curious on how it would work, because I feel like if it's announced to the country, hey, we're not taxing tips, I think a lot of people will stop tipping. So that's a concern for me, because our hourly is okay, but it's certainly not enough to survive. So that's, I think, my major concern.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eileen Scott. I work at Harris as a cocktail server. I guess I'll be talking to you a little later on my stories and my issues, which is no issue. I'm all for it, so we'll talk soon.
All right, so we're going to come back to you. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, great.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Yolanda, and I'm just gonna come back and talk to you guys later, and I support the no tax on tips.
Good morning. My name is Aaron DeVue. I've been a bartender in Las Vegas 37 years. I'm currently at the Golden Nugget. I have a couple of the issues I have. I'm a proud father of a 19-year-old, and we just recently went shopping for a home for her and realized that it's not something we're going to see in our near future because of the cost of living. It's frustrating to get out there to try to have her be independent and thrive at her age, and see that it's not something that's conducive, at least where we're at in this economy. I'd also like to ask your opinion a little bit about Californians, how they're leaving California so rapidly right now, and the impact it has with us. They're great neighbors to us. They help us, our economy, thrive here. But the impact of their cost of living and coming to Las Vegas and how it's changing us as well, how we could partner with that. So I'd like to hear some input out of that, if you would.
Hi, my name is Courtney Ellis, and I'm a food server at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. I really appreciate this bill and what your intentions are with it. I think one thing that I'm appreciative of is I live in a state that requires minimum wage for servers. I think there's only about 5 of them that do, and I'm also very blessed to be in a union where I make a little bit more than that. So I definitely want to hear about how you plan on implementing that nationwide to everyone to be raised. I think that we all deserve a living wage regardless of tips, because like everyone's saying, they are a gift. But I definitely am concerned with the implications of not being taxed on tips. I would love that, but I also just want to know what that would look like for the future for everyone.
Hey everyone, my name is Ernesto. I'm a Caesar Palace Gisawa restaurant. I'm a buzzer for 16 years. And I think it's fair, and it's fair to get a lot of fight for this as a gift for the tips. And we all got hurt because that's unfair that the government will get all the money and then let us work like everybody's servers, buzzers, and food runner, everybody's running, getting tips. And it's not a percentage that we can get everybody, and that's unfair because somebody don't get any tips at all. And it's unfair. Why? Because it's like a gift. And when it comes to a gift, we used to have it, and everybody be fair to share, to have to share each other. So I think that's a very bad what they did, what they're doing right now, charging this taxes into the tips. And the reason is because everybody is, they're getting their money, but we're not getting our money. So the economy is getting down, and we can see it. And our families is the one who's suffering. We have kids. We have grandkids that are coming. And I don't know, like we are having grandkids and everybody, and I think that's unfair. They're going to be working as a tips, and I think it's unfair to have a tax in there because that's a gift. And I really want to press this when I push it really hard like this to get fair. And this is out of the law because that's a gift, and that's somebody that's stealing money to us. But we don't have the right to I mean, somebody's going to go up there and tell them, you're stealing our money, because they are stealing our money. And it's fair to fight for this. And I think we've had to press it. Now move everywhere to have a decent house, decent, like a fair family, to have something that we have food and we have a school and we have more kids educated. Like my kids are in university, and I'm proud, but it's a lot of work that we had to do. And those tips, they help a lot to our families. And I think that's America supposed to be free out of taxes on the tips, because that's a gift.
Morning, my name is Glenn Wilson. I work at Caesar's Palace. I've been there 25 years. And I wanted to say thank you for reintroducing this bill. And I'm in support of it. But I just have certain things like, I understand where the Trumps is just like, let's take care of our buddies. And like, I even heard or read that it would like for stock guys, their commissions would be considered tips too. And then we get away with that. But I think my real question is because I support what you've fundamentally put in the bill, but I have a question of is the loss of revenue of taxes, like the whole picture of that. Like I even with Trump himself or whatever, we all kind of go, well, yeah, that sounds great, but there's a lot of revenue that comes from from the taxes that they put on us, and I'm concerned of like, well, what's the back end on that? What's going to happen if you do give us the no tax on tips? Where are they going to come at me and somewhere else? And that's just honestly how I feel about it. And I mean, I do support what you're supporting there.
Thank you.
So these are great, phenomenal questions, and I'm going to take each one. I'd like to maybe have an opportunity to hear from Eileen and Yolanda just to share their stories. And then I'm going to maybe give an overview of the legislation, answer some of the specific questions that you each have raised to the best of my ability, and then also make sure we know going out of here what it's going to take to get it done. So why don't we start with Eileen Scott? All right.
Yeah, I see that. It's going to go all over the place. But good morning again, everyone. My name is Eileen Scott, and I'm a cocktail server at Harris Casino, and I am definitely a proud member of the Culinary Union 226. The union has changed my life tremendously, so I'm really proud of that. Thank you, Ted. Yes, I do. Just the wages alone, I have the security, the safety. There's so many things that's built in our language, in our contract that protects us. I think a lot of people don't even realize that it's happening, but just having the collective voices, if we have grievance to take care of, is so much being a part of a union that we all sometimes takes for granted, but when it's there, we use it and it's needed, and so we totally appreciate that. But today I'm going to be talking about something else. No tax on tips and where it stands. So starting with that, like I have stories when I was in a casino, finishing my shift, feet hurt, achy, and then I'm there with my customers and dealing with them, and I get home and I go, oh wait, IRS is going to take some taxes out of my tips that the customer has given to us as a gift
of our hard work and everything that we put into it, and now we're being taxed on it. So those are things you think about, one night. IRS tells us that I do slots and table games, which means that it's comp drinks. So nowadays, everything's cashless. So it's very rarely that people have cash in their pockets to tip you anyway. But by the time the customer gets to me, they already exhausted on the money that they already spent coming through the door. So when they hear something free, they're like, great, we deserve this. We done paid $500 before we got to our room from resort fees, from parking, and all that. So IRS tells me that I should be making $27 an hour. I remember working, and I looked at my 3.5 hours of working, and I looked in my tip cup, and I had $34. At that point, I had to realize, do I go home early? Because now I'm working for the government. Money is going towards them instead of into my household. So those are the things and the decisions we think about. I talk to the guests, and they say, well, why are we responsible for your your income? And I understand what they're saying. They say the company should be paying for it. So those are the things that we deal with. We are blessed that we live in a state that our wages are higher than others, so there are people who are making, like you brought up, $2.13. I can't even imagine that. And they're saying that the tips should match living wage for them, which is crazy. And I read that that was in place in 1991. Some of you guys weren't even born in 1991. That's still in effect. So those are things that, as a community in the industry, hospitality industry, we have to reach out to all our brothers and sisters. We are not there till we all are making money. And no tax on tips will benefit a lot of us. I know, how it's going to affect it well. Having money on my income tax, saying that I make so much money and I know I don't make that money, it's great if I want to buy a house. I got a house. But it's also not true of what we truly make. And so something you said a while ago, I heard you talk about the no tax on tips. And the words you put, it really resonated with me. And I'm trying to remember the words, but I know how it felt. It was more that workers should get ahead and not just getting by. And I don't want to just get by. I think we deserve more than that. So I just appreciate being here, hearing your story and how this all going to work. All of us stand together, and let's get it done. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Yolanda. Good morning. My name is Yolanda. I'm a founder worker at Resort World. I have been a Culinary Union member from the last 10 years. I'm thankful to be a Culinary Union member because as a being a Culinary Union member, as a tip worker, it has helped me a lot because we get a lightable page with a contract. Thanks to the union, we have been having a strong union, and we have the union has been fighting for the working class. My great wages and contract helps me to take care of my 2 daughters. And this is a big difference from other workers who have been working, getting paid the sub-minimum wage that is as little as $2.13 per hour in other states. And not paying taxes on my tips will help me to get my life a lot, because now I can buy, if that goes through, it helps me for buy more grocery. Now everything has gone up, and due to the price gouging from other big companies. So that would help me a lot with buying more groceries and even gas, like even a gallon of gas. And not paying the tips, like Steve Horsford said, tips are a gift. It's not guaranteed. We don't have that guarantee in our date and a day where you go to work and we go to work and it's not going to be a guarantee that we're going to have like a good tip. So that is going to help a lot if we don't have tips, tax on tips, because our tip compliance is higher than what we usually make on tips. And I would like to thank as Congressman Steve Horsford because of introducing the TIPS Act, because he hasn't forgotten about the working class. But unlike President Trump, he forgot about including the working class in his tax plan, but he didn't forget about his billionaire friends. So I just would like to thank Steve Horsford for fighting for what is right. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Eileen and to Yolanda, to all the workers. So what I'm going to do now is just give an overview of the bill, answer some of the questions that I've heard come up as themes, and then turn it back over to Ted. So the TIPS Act, which is my bill, which is now introduced, and we're calling on all Republicans and Democrats to sign on to my bill, the TIPS Act, because it's the only bill that accomplishes what many of you just talked about, which is to center the needs of workers. If we're going to eliminate the tax on tips and increase the wage for workers in tiptions, my bill's the only one that does that. My bill does two fundamental things. Number one, it exempts the tips from federal income tax, not the portion that goes to Social Security, up to a certain threshold, so that big, wealthy people, billionaires, can't skim off of your hard work. And it ensures that workers keep the entirety of their tip that they've earned, because you all did that work. The legislation benefits nearly 6 million workers who are traditionally tipped workers, and sadly, some of them make as little as $37,000 a year. Now, before this issue, I was working with the Culinary Union and the Bartenders Union on the tip allocation. So we're still going to report the total amount. That doesn't change. The part that changes on the no tax on tips is you don't have to pay the tax on the income portion. We do this in the tax code for a lot of other things, but they've never done it for tipped workers. That's the difference in my legislation. The second part of what my bill does, because I believe one job should be enough, is it eliminates this thing called the sub-minimum tipped wage, which in 1991, the Fair Labor Standards Act was amended to increase the federal tip minimum wage to $2.13 an hour. Before then, it was even lower. I graduated from Clark High School in 1991. The idea that people are being paid as little as $2.13 an hour for any job, let alone as tipped workers in hospitality and restaurant and the service industry, is unconscionable, it's immoral, it's wrong, and it needs to end. This wage, which was set in 1991, has not been changed since. And there were 5 states, now it's up to 8. Only 8 states, including Nevada, pay at or above the federal minimum wage for tip workers. Nevada, we're one of them, because your union fought to make that the law. That law does not apply in most of the other states. And the problem with the state law is that a federal law comes in, it can supersede the state law, meaning it can repeal that protection. We just saw that with a woman's right to make her own health care decision. So the second part affects underserved communities the most. 70% of these workers that make $2.13 an hour, as little as $2.13 an hour, are women. This is where we have the inequity in pay. If your daughter is only getting paid a fraction of what everybody else is, that affects her ability to go purchase a home. It affects her ability to contribute those wages into her Social Security. It sets her up to be further and further behind, even though a lot of women are the head of the household and are paying the bills and taking care of their families, like my mother. My legislation also provides a number of important guardrails. Tax policy is complicated, but it's not so damn complicated that workers can't have our rights included. They want us to pay taxes, but they don't want us to have a say in writing the tax law. I'm now on the committee, Ways and Means, that writes the tax law. We hear from major industry, from big corporations, from tech tycoons, what they want because they have lawyers, they have lobbyists, they have accountants. I'm making sure that we are hearing from workers because you have a union that is fighting for you to be heard. So in my bill, I have crucial guardrails that are not in any other bill. My bill includes ensuring that employees pay payroll taxes on tips that would go towards Social Security, but would continue with the removal of income taxes on tips. That protects you so that you do still get your full Social Security and the employer match that comes with your contribution. My bill ensures that future legislation to tips received from work in historically and customarily tipped industries, including cosmetology, hospitality, food service, and custodial service, are defined. The other proposals, the other concepts of a plan don't define what is a tipped worker. So you're going to tell me that some rich person can give a gift to their child and call it a tip and then not have to pay tax on it. That's a ripoff. That's how they game the system. And then they make you come back and pay for that gift. So my bill defines that. So only those people who fit within that criteria are eligible for this tax break. The eligibility of the TIPS Act is capped at $112,500. This, again, ensures that those above that amount, you get up to that amount, but over that amount, you don't get to receive that benefit. Finally, the TIPS Act, if passed into law by the President, will apply to taxable years beginning December 31st of 2025. That's why this conversation is so important, because when I go back next week, we're starting debate on the budget and the taxes. And if we don't have this included in the debate, they're going to go give tax breaks to big corporations, to the tech tycoons, and to the billionaires, and there'll be no discussion about this. It's one thing to say, I want to see it. It's another thing to write it and have a bill ready for debate in the committee. The president doesn't get to just dictate tax policy. It has to come through Congress. My legislation has the provisions that are necessary. So again, while there have been concepts of legislation introduced by my Republican colleagues to affect how tipped earners' taxes are treated, none of those bills include the guardrails that are in the TIPS Act or the elimination of the sub-minimum wage for tip earners. Absent those provisions, the policy is bullshit. It does not help workers. And I am going to fight like hell to defend my constituents to make sure that they get the benefits that they deserve. We're past time having tax policy that only favors big corporations and the very wealthy and that leaves all the rest of us out. Americans deserve a tax code that works for working families and not just the wealthy and the well-connected. So if you want more information about my legislation, the TIPS Act, you can go to my website at horsford.house.gov. We have a fact sheet that outlines all of the provisions that I just talked about. You can share your story about why we need to center the needs of workers and why the issues of the cost of living are so important and why enacting the TIPS Act will actually help keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket. It will lift the wages of all hospitality workers nationwide. And when we do that, we continue to protect your workers here in Nevada. And it will ensure that we have these important guardrails in place so that when the tax on tips, the no tax on tips, is adopted, that it can actually get implemented. You all know how frustrating it is to get a letter from the IRS asking you about your income tax and your tips. And that's where this issue started when we were talking about the tax allocation. And we saw that in 2020 during the pandemic, some of you talked about this, your tips went down because service was down. Well, and then the IRS wanted to make you continue to pay your tax based on the income of the highest rate, even though you weren't making that in 2020. They didn't want to make that adjustment. Well, it was your union, along with myself, that convened a negotiation with the IRS. It was downtown in Las Vegas. I brought the IRS to a meeting like this in a conference room to hear directly from you and your members, as well as the employers, so that we could get that right. That is how serious I am when it comes to standing up for workers. I'm not here for a slogan. I'm not running or asking people to vote for me for an issue. I live here. I trained workers here for 10 years. I know the value of these jobs. And when they provide good benefits, good wages, health care, retirement, yeah, you can provide a good living for your family. You can put your kids through school. You can have the security of having a health insurance that actually allows you to see a doctor and not have co-pays that you can't afford. It allows you to retire with dignity with a pension. And now a housing benefit to get a down payment on a house. But this is another issue. We got corporate landlords that are buying up all the property. It's not only California people. 1/3 of all the property in Las Vegas is owned by Wall Street hedge funds. 1 in 3. One company is the largest property owner in southern Nevada. In parts of my district, there are zip codes where every 3 houses owned by one of these hedge funds. They're the ones driving up the cost of rent. They're the ones that are making it harder for us to buy our first home, or for veterans to use their VA benefit, or for people that work hard to move into a better house. And I have a bill to fix that too. But I can't do any of this without the people, without the workers and the people knowing the importance of these issues and how you influence it. Now look, Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and we have the closest margin in 94 years in the House. It's the 2-seat margin between the Republicans and the Democrats. There's nothing that's going to get through Trump's agenda that can't get Democratic votes in the House. Well, I'm telling you right now, they don't have my vote if they don't take care of the workers. So I hope that in that explanation, I've covered a majority of the questions that you all raised. I am here to answer more of your questions later, but I really appreciate the fact that you all are centering this issue and that you're so engaged and focused. I know it comes up a lot on the properties, probably back of the house conversations. I was trying to get a drink over at one of the places one day, and the guy says, so talk to me about this no tax on tips. So I get it. This is an issue that people want to see action on. And regardless of whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, or if you're not in a party at all, workers should still be at the center of the policy, and it should be fair and equitable for you, not for big corporations, not for the billionaires, and not for the tech tycoons. They have their special interest. I'm going to make sure you have a voice in this process too.
All right. Thank you, Congressman. So, look, I have a couple comments to add, and then I think we're going to open the questions from the press. So, and I'll hand it back to you, Congressman. So, look, we heard some of these concerns at the table. This is a great crosshatch of the concerns that are going on in the workplace all the time, and folks sitting at their own kitchen table trying to figure out how to pay their bills and dealing with the cost of living. So it's very normal to have concerns or be nervous. And some of these concerns that you brought up are some that are out there with some economists and kind of talking heads out there about why maybe this couldn't work. But the reality is those economists and talking heads never worked for $2.13 an hour. They never have. So they don't really understand. The other thing is this, is that, look, this is not etched in stone, this idea that, tips have to be taxed. And so as tip earners, having this idea that having to fight year in, year out to get fairness in tax policy yearly with the IRS, the reality is this was brought into law into the 80s with the Reagan administration. That was when this idea of taxes on tips and tip allocation was originated. So we have the ability to win this, but as the congressman says, it's going to be a fight. And thank goodness we have a fighter like Congressman Horsford on our side. And look, this idea of tax revenue, well, you heard everything covered by the congressman. The idea of making sure that billionaires pay their fair share, there's plenty out there to be had. But we've got a warrior on our side, a history of fighting for workers here in Nevada from Congressman Horsford and our entire delegation. So, look, we're very proud of your work, Congressman, very proud of it. And we've been so proud to team up with you in this fight, and it's been a fight. We've been at this for 30 plus years, and we're going to continue to fight. But there's a moment here. There's a moment, there's an opportunity here, and we're going to fight. So again, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming here. And again, I'm going to hand it back over to you and take questions.
The people, the workers here in Las Vegas. The president was here. He understands. He made a campaign promise to the people of Nevada. Okay, if he's serious, I'm ready to meet with you, Mr. President. I'm ready to talk to you about the TIPS Act and eliminating both the tax on tips in a way that has all the guardrails that I have articulated and are included in my legislation, and to raise the wage of tip workers by eliminating the sub-minimum wage, which will become the law of the land across the United States. I am also working with my Republican colleagues, both on the committee and in the House. There's a version of a bill that includes some of my provisions with Congressman Vern Buchanan, who is he's a member out of Florida, Republican member, and some of the provisions that I've called for in my TIPS Act, he's receptive to, and my staff and his staff are in negotiation on, and I have talked to him directly about the legislation. This issue, because it affects tipped workers and hospitality workers, we have a lot of destinations across the country where hospitality and service, which is now a third of our economy, those members of Congress need to understand the importance of this issue and getting it right for workers. And that's what the TIPS Act does. If they're serious, I'm open to meeting with them, working with them, and getting it right. So we have, I don't know what the latest number is of co-sponsors. Every member in the House delegation, Congresswoman Susie Lee and Dina Titus, there's a companion bill in the Senate that is also being moved, and we're soliciting additional co-sponsors every single day. But beyond the co-sponsors, what I want to say to the people here in Las Vegas is you matter and your voice in this matters, right? And so the more the people demand action on this issue, it's our job as your representatives to listen. So call your member of Congress, call your United States Senator, and tell them to get on the TIPS Act and to make sure that we get this right for workers.
Thank you. There'll be time for more questions after, but we've got a couple more.
So you're talking about the Republican bill that from a Florida Republican?
Vern Buchanan.
Yes. So what are some of the overlapping provisions there? I'm curious what the points of agreement were.
Yeah, I will connect you with my policy, my tax staff, because the discussions are ongoing. But for example, the guardrails that I talked about, ensuring that we define what a tipped worker is important. Capping it at a certain threshold so millionaires can't scheme off or rip off the intent of this legislation. The provision around making sure that people do still contribute into their Social Security and that it's matched. That's an important guardrail. They didn't have any of that in their concept of a plan, and that's why it sounds more like a slogan than a real legislative proposal. But because of my relationships with some of these Republicans and my earnestness in reaching out to them, Vern Buchanan is someone, I serve on the health subcommittee with him, and so we talk about policy a lot. He represents a destination community like Las Vegas, so he's been open to hear some of my points of view on this issue that really come from the workers.
I think that's it for now. We'll do some one-on-ones after. Thanks, Ted.
Okay.
We're all set.
Yep. Okay. All right. So again, this is a fabulous venue for a discussion like this. This is the Culinary Academy of Las Vegas. Again, I want to say thank you so much all for coming. We're very proud to welcome all of you to this academy. We're remodeling too. It's going to be bigger and better than ever. You heard Congressman Horsford say that, for over 10 years, he was the leader of this academy. Now he's a leader on the national scene, fighting for workers and workers in Nevada. And again, I'm going to say one more time, thank you so much, Congressman Horsford, for all of your hard work. Thank you, and thank you all for coming today. I understand we're going to have folks available for individual comment and discussion with the press. Thank you, everybody.
Great job. Appreciate you.
Excuse me.